Hello, everyone. This is Adrian Harper here, CEO of Cloud 77 and Harper Consultants. And today I'm very, very, very excited to have with us today Tallin Semerjian. She is a founder and CEO of Hello Talent. She's been in the talent acquisition profession for how long now, Tallin? Over 12 years?
15, 15 years, yeah.
15 years, yes. So she's a seasoned professional in the talent acquisition space. And today we're excited to ask her, pick her brain, get some insights about recruiting and employee development. And as you may already be able to see, we are about building teams that thrive. So, Talon, really glad to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, totally. The pleasure is all ours. And to our guests, our live streamers, we're really glad to have you on. Those on Zoom, those on LinkedIn. Very excited. If you're watching us later on YouTube, glad you could join us as well. All right. So, Talent, I'm just gonna ask you, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your professional and maybe educational experience in terms of what brings you to the space of talent acquisition and why?
Sure. Thank you again for having me. So, as Adrian mentioned, Tallin Semerjian. I've been in talent acquisition for 15 years now. My background is quite different from the traditional recruiting experience. I didn't get into HR at an early educational time. I actually got my degree in music.
Hmm.
And early on, after I graduated from UC Berkeley, I decided to take a path into something that brought my other passions, which was tech and connecting people. So I got into tech recruiting, and that was kind of my first touch into talent acquisition.
Yes.
And I just fell in love. I loved everything tech. I loved everything people. So, besides my creative and music side, I was like, this is a great place for me to marry the both passions of tech and people. So, that's how I started my talent acquisition career. I got
Mhm.
into the agency environment and then moved really shortly on to RPO and spent about 10, 12 years in RPO and just recently founded Hello Talent. So now I'm providing talent acquisition services from direct hire sources, from consulting on the employment side, so employment branding, interview processes, qualifying talent, you name it, end to end talent
End to
acquisition.
end.
So um, I've done the global thing, and I'm really excited to bring back to my community now for recruiting.
Yes.
So
That
I'm
is.
happy to be here today to chat through that.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler. It's great to get to know you a little bit more and your professional background and what brought you into this space. Yes, bringing the professional experience of talent acquisition and working with people and focusing on your local community. I think that's such a special thing. Like
Mhm.
you said, you did the corporate thing, and now you want to do the community thing. Maybe could you tell us a little bit more about how you want to impact the communities through your work? Could you talk a little bit to that?
Sure. I think what's really neat about talent acquisition or recruiting
Mhm.
is that you get to bring kind of two worlds together, and that's the employer world and the talent world, or the candidate world, or the job seeker world. And I think in both sides, I love making the impact, right? It's really rewarding to help an employer find talent that's going to help them scale, get to their business goals, get to their product roadmap goals, get to their next investment goals. So that's really exciting. And then on the job seeker side, of course, it's so rewarding to have an impact in someone's life, giving them their livelihood, giving them a purpose in the workplace, matching them to their dream job. So bringing that impact to my community on both sides is just so rewarding.
I
And
totally
I,
love
I
that.
love being able to do that at a community level.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. We need more people like you working out there to bring development, bring opportunities, bring jobs to local communities, not just here, but I'm sure everywhere. As we start to get into the idea of recruiting, I'm just going to start with, something pretty kind of foundational. So Ty, when people hear the word recruiting, right, they often think it simply means posting a job or finding someone to fill a role. from your experience, how should leaders and business owners really think about recruiting today?
Sure. So we've come way beyond that post and pray, where you just like post a job and you hope applications are going to come.
Yeah.
We're way beyond that. Um,
Hmm.
Employers start to think about hiring when there's a need,
Hmm.
and we need to switch that mind frame. First of all, as an
Mm.
employer or business, you should always be thinking about your talent pipeline or how to
Yes.
build for the future. So that would be my first point of advice. As an employer, think about hiring or talent roadmaps or your talent community, your talent pipeline, whatever you want to call it, early on, not when the need is there. Because what happens when the need is there and you come into this dire, time where you're just like, oh my gosh, we need someone to fill this seat. It becomes very
Right.
reactive and not
Yes.
strategic. And we want to
Uh-huh.
avoid that in all costs.
Absolutely, I'm
So my
sure.
first point of
Yeah.
advice is do whatever you can to think about it conceptually, big picture thinking of what your talent's going to look like. So you can be more strategic because recruiting needs to be strategic, shouldn't
Understood.
be
Understood.
reactive. So move with intention, move with strategy. Think about immediate needs, but think about future needs as well, and how hiring this person is going to impact as a whole. And when you're hiring, there's steps to hiring. Move with intention from the very beginning, not,
Mm.
hey, we need a button seat, like bring this person on.
Yeah.
Think about how they're going to fit into the big picture. Move with intention in those steps. So, interviewing, you're coming prepared. You've looked at the resume, you've come with questions, you've brought the interview panel that needs to meet with this person. So, moving with intention with every step. And then when you're there to qualify or you're there to make a decision, again, we're moving with strategy and not um, reactive steps. And I say that with reason, Adrian, because you would be surprised.
Mm.
Employers at times just make it very transactional and are just like, okay, we need to do the interview. Cool. Hey, Adrian, what's up?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see your resume. And it's
Right.
like,
Right.
no, 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 no. This is the meat and bones of it, right? Like this is
Right.
the time to see that this
Right.
person going to work out for you, and is it their decision as well to make the match. So
Right.
biggest advice, I guess, would be move with strategy, not be reactive when making those hiring decisions.
Thank you for that. A friend of mine, old friend of mine, used to say it's so important not to wait till the last minute. Otherwise, you're going to just be acting out of desperation versus preparation.
Absolutely.
So I love that answer. Thank you so much, Talin. So when companies are evaluating candidates, right? How can they
Mhm.
balance their technical skills and experience and make sure there's a good culture fit without missing great candidates? We want to make sure we have good potential. We want to make sure that we've got somebody that has great technical skills as well as the experience. How do we make sure we don't miss those golden nuggets?
Yes. A lot of companies have moved to skill-based hiring, which I love. Skills-based hiring is great. I also think it's really important to consider for the way that your company's moving and kind of checking off the boxes with candidates in the way of adaptability, loyalty, compassion, trust, respect, uh, the soft skills, if you will, someone that's eager to learn, someone that wants to grow with the company, someone that wants to um, come with purpose each day, in and out with passion. Uh, I think you've heard people say, oh, this person looks great on paper. And then you meet them and you're like, it's just not a fit, right? There's
True.
many layers to that.
Hmm.
And and you'll learn as an employer what works for your organization and what doesn't. uh, I would challenge employers to think about when they're hiring, skills are great, hire for the future, hire for how will this person grow, right? Oftentimes, hiring managers are looking for 100% of the fit. I say, if you really feel great about this candidate and they meet 80% of it,
Go
let
for it.
them grow into that 20%.
Yeah.
Trust me, it'll be a better investment for you than somebody that meets 120, 150, whatever percent on paper. Because that person, you're going to invest in that person, they're going to grow with your company and they're going to give you more. Trust me, it happens every time.
So great. I love it. So tell me, if there was a, is there a ratio then, or between the resume and the interview? Like, what is there a golden ratio? Is there some like magical number? How do you, or is it just a gut feel during the interview? What is it like, especially when it comes to the culture and the fit and maybe that aha moment? How would you gauge that in any given moment? Tough question, right? But
It is because it also depends on where you're at in that
mm,
time of hiring, right? There might be a little nugget of desperation where you're like, I need someone to have just a little bit more experience, but
mhm,
challenging that with maybe you can coach them to get there very
mhm,
quickly, right?
mhm,
There is an 80-20 rule, which they say is like the golden rule, right? If they make
mhm,
80% of it, you can coach and develop on the 20%. That's not going to say every single time is going to meet that formula, right? But yeah, I think a lot of it can be gut feelings. I think
mhm,
I always come back to this example of I was working with a client that was like really, really strict on these really hard core skills, right? They needed to have X amount of years in this. They needed this. They needed this. Like there was a list of check boxes that were absolute. But I interviewed this candidate that made 80% of it, but I just knew in my gut based on her tenacity, based on her agility, based on her wanting to learn more and develop in these areas.
mhm,
I just knew I had to get them in front of my client. And sure enough, it ended up being, I'm not kidding, our best hire. It ended up
mm.
being our best hire. To this day, that
Amazing.
person is the best hire I ever made.
I love it. I love it, Taline. Well, talking about good hires, right? Well, let's talk about maybe say uh, mistakes that hires can make. What are some of the most common hiring
Mm.
mistakes you see businesses, entrepreneurs, companies that are growing and they're hiring? What are some of the mistakes that they typically make?
Being reactive, being
Mm,
reactive, just trying to fill a seat, just saying, you know what, we just need someone, like get them in. And it typically doesn't play in the employer's favor. If you move too fast and you're reactive with your hiring decisions, it typically doesn't end well. Now, on the flip side of that, there's two extremes here.
mhm,
Employers go into this volume syndrome where they need to keep seeing more and more, see more candidates. They have 20 candidates that they've seen. They still haven't made a decision. They're just so scared to make that decision.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
I would, there's two extremes to that. So you either move too quickly or you move too slow. So be aware of that. You know, come back to that 80-20 rule. Come back to, hey, lean on your recruiters, lean on your talent acquisition, lean on your HR team, speak, speak with your team, really get a sense of these candidates. Um, and the grass is not always greener. You don't need to see 50 candidates to make a decision, but you also need to
Yeah.
move with intention, right? There's a balance. So those are the common hiring mistakes that I typically see, not taking the process seriously and also respecting the candidate and the prospect in that time. Ultimately, the decision goes both ways, right? You're interviewing for my company. Um, I need to treat you with respect. You need to treat me as a candidate in respect in that process as well.
Got it. So timing, volume, thoughtfulness, not being reactive, just looking
Hmm.
for that good fit, not necessarily looking for the perfect fit. Those are like it
Yes.
sounds like some of the things that employers should really be willing to go for. It kind of sounds
Yeah,
a little bit,
absolutely.
if it sounds a little bit like, a couple that's going on a date and you're like, okay, you want that person, oh, I want this absolute person. They have to meet every single item on that checklist in order to be that person when really you just need that person that's going to be 80% of the way there and the rest you got to
Yeah,
work it through,
you work
right?
through it. You work through it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's career matchmaking, right? It's
Hmm.
this similar principles.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Well, maybe employers are a little bit too picky sometimes, I guess, or or it could go the other way as well too. I'm sure for employees or potential candidates
Yeah.
wanting that
You know
ideal
those
job.
people in your life that
Exactly.
make the wrong
Mhm.
decisions too
Right.
quickly in
You're
the
like you can see
romantic,
it a mile away. You're like, don't do it. Don't
or
do it.
they,
Right.
yeah, they try too many.
Right. It's absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm sure as a third party professional, coming in and inserting yourself into
Mm,
organizations, being a partner in the process gives you a certain level of objectivity that others are not necessarily able to see, especially hiring companies or
mm.
employers during that process. Um,
Absolutely. You know those friends that kind of give you the advice when you're dating that one person that may not be
right.
the best.
No,
Yeah,
don't listen.
it's
You
the same thing.
don't go to Johnny.
You're,
Don't
you
go to
know,
Johnny.
yeah, you have that outside view of like, hey, maybe you want to reconsider this
Yeah.
candidate, or maybe
Right.
you need to get rid of this
Yes.
candidate.
Yeah.
It's the same
Yes. Yes.
idea.
Well, you bring up a great point. I didn't know this phrase until recently, but there's this term catfishing, right? We see in the
Mm,
contemporary dating world. How often do you see that candidates maybe come in, they interview really well, but when it actually comes time for execution, and how do you how would I say, how do you distinguish or kind of suss that out, so to speak, figure out if somebody's really okay, they look great on paper, but when it comes time to and maybe they're great on in the interview, but there's something that's not right. Is there anything like that
mm.
anything that you could share to that?
That's a really good one, Adrian. You know, we do our best. People are people at the end of the day. No matter how professional you are, no matter how
Yeah.
many years you've had,
Yeah.
people are people. So you do
Okay.
your best,
Hmm.
right, from each step of the process to vet the
Hmm.
candidate, get a feel for them. When
Hmm.
you've been doing it for a while, you have these gut feelings, you have these little flags that come up when
Yeah.
you're having conversations. Uh, but when you're vetting a candidate or you're having these conversations at the beginning, it's besides the skills, right? You need to suss out the motivators for that candidate, why they're
Mm.
interested in the role, what their goals are, right? These are ultimately going to hopefully show you what they're they're coming into and how they're going to come into it, right? If you
Hmm.
have someone that isn't interested in the role or the company at all, they just want
Hmm.
more money, maybe it'll work, right? It happens sometimes, but my the reason why I say that is there needs to be more conversation, deep dive conversations into their motivating factors, why they're looking to join, their interest in it, besides just the skills. And you hope with the combination of the two, understanding their skills, their motivators, you can meet them as an employer to
Mm.
ensure that it is a successful journey, right?
Right.
That, you hope that both ways show up that they need to, right?
Got it.
Because it can go both ways. It can say the candidate
Very
is
true.
not a good decision, or the
Ooh.
employer also,
Oh,
right? Also says
that
like,
hits
I'm going to do
home.
whatever I can to get
Yeah.
this candidate in, and then they like show up and they're
Wow.
like, whoa, this is not what I expected. So having those honest conversations, painting the
Uh-huh.
real picture,
I
and
see.
then making sure that you do whatever you can foundationally at those conversations, that beginning point, so that both sides are not surprised in the end, and we hope that it's a successful hire.
That's such a great point, and one that, it kind of rings home for me as you're speaking right now. So often I myself as an employer, I'm thinking about, okay, who's the right fit, who's the right candidate? But, their honest conversation with oneself is, am I a good fit? Am I a good employer? And so what are some of the qualities you would say that makes a good employer? Like what makes
Mm.
a business, a company, a culture, a group, a team, a good environment for somebody, to come and work in, a candidate, an employee, potential employee.
Yeah. When you think of what makes a good culture, what makes a good working environment, you're often coming to answer what doesn't make a good culture. And we've probably all had that job or
Yes.
that environment where you're just like, whoa, this is not where I should be right now. Like this is not hitting my my ethics, my morality, just my consciousness. And like it is not moving in a way that meets my energy. Um, I remember being in a working environment where the CEO was constantly talking down about their employees with the office door open
Mm.
and
Wow.
and doing it in a way that was sure to be heard about the team. And it just brought, of course, it brought the whole energy down. No one wanted to work. No one felt valued. No one felt like it was just like, why am I here? Right?
Yeah.
In a culture that feels good, you're you're feeling the value. You're feeling seen, heard. You're met with respect. You feel like you're in an organization where you have a say, where you're, no matter if you're executive level, your individual contributor level, you're in the middle, whatever it is, that you're working as a team and you're met with respect in that. Um, some of the best places I've worked,
Mm-hmm.
I would have executives treating me as an equal, right? We're working as one. They would check in on me besides the business stuff. Executives, HR, my managers, they were checking in to make sure we're moving good. We're moving in a positive way. If I had challenges, I felt comfortable. So I think building a circle of trust, of comfort, feeling inclusive, feeling like you're working with one another. People are coming to work with passion, coming to work, coming to actually give their all. So it's a lot of respect, a lot of authenticity, a lot of empathy, a lot of trust. Those are the environments that you feel good working in, and that you get
Mm.
that recognition for giving your 8, 10, 12 hours a day, right?
Mm. Mm.
Um,
So true. So
you
true. So true.
have you been in an environment where you are
I,
just like, this is not for me?
well, thanks for turning the tables on me, Talon. Yes, there was, I remember one employer, used to work, over the hill, over the San Fernando Valley into the greater Los Angeles
Yeah.
area. I'll just make it a
Mm.
broad region, not to give any names. But we had a really, really amazing culture, really, really wonderful. We had fun as employees. We were about 50 people in that small business that was growing. We worked for some of the most exciting and growing companies in Los Angeles. So it was a very much high energy buzz environment.
Nice.
If you think of the big names we were working there, it was just, but more than that, it was just the culture of camaraderie. We'd all, by the time we'd gone to as consultants doing technology, we'd go to our clients on site for the morning or midday, come back in the afternoon, and there it is, we'd be coming back to the back office and kind of cracking jokes and having fun. And, the owner used to throw these really kind of fun parties at the end, sometimes on a Friday. The culture was just amazing. And then
Mm,
sadly, something happened and something personal happened and the culture just shifted. He brought in
mm,
some people to help and they weren't so helpful in helping that owner manage the company, and he was dealing with his own struggles at that time, so the culture really shifted rapidly. From I remember he would send out these surveys saying, hey, what would you like to see changed in the culture, in the environment, in the workplace? And I remember writing back, nothing, don't change a single thing, it's perfect.
mm.
Within, I think, like 2 years of that, everything just went downhill. The people that came in just didn't fit the culture, of the old way the company did things, nor did they fit the idea of like where we thought it was headed.
I
So
see.
within a span of like 2 years, pretty much the core team had left. I mean, and
Oh,
that
wow.
Yeah, that consultancy had just amazing, amazing. I work with some of the brightest minds in LA, and so it was such an exciting privilege. So, I can speak to what you're saying, Tan, about making sure that the leadership is actually caring, involved, engaging, and really active. And as you mentioned it, and you asked me that question, I can really think back to just seeing the great way and then seeing how things kind of just you know, it didn't work out, after a couple, shifts. But on to my next question for you. So,
Sure.
Tan, how would you say, how important is employer branding in recruiting? And for smaller businesses that may not have a big HR or marketing team or firm, where should they start?
Mhm. So for those that may not know what employer brand means. So if you think of a consumer brand, you can think of like looking at a website, looking at reviews, looking at the product reviews and so forth. That's your consumer brand. So as an employer, you also have a brand. You have your website, you have your company reviews, you have word on the street, you have your presence on social. So you have your employer brand. So when you think about our society of how do you decide to buy a product,
Yeah.
right? You go look at the reviews. You ask your friends, hey, have you tried this? Or do you know anyone that's tried it? It's the same
Mhm.
thing for employers, for companies. You check in. Maybe there's someone you know that's worked there. Maybe you look on the website, or Glassdoor is a great place to look at employer brands. You see the company reviews.
Mhm.
So you ask around. So it's absolutely important to have an employer brand, a presence. It can work for you, it can work against you. Um, Thinking of website, for instance, if you're an employer, if you're a small business that perhaps you don't have a huge budget to do, make a ravishing website or what have you. There's so many tools, by the way, that can help you do it for really affordable ways. Canva, AI, there's a lot of things. But ultimately, you want your employer brand to reflect your true self. Uh, I've worked with many employers where they have really inclusive cultures, inclusive that are teams that are very mission driven. Their company's mission driven. They win lots of accolades. They volunteer in the community. They do a lot of fantastic things, but they don't show it. They don't have it on their websites. They don't have it on their social presence. So that's a really easy way to start building your brand. Talk about um, your true environment, your true self, what you stand for as an organization, your values. Perhaps you have really great um, testimonials from your employers. Maybe there are great opportunities for internal mobility, for growth at your company. These are the types of things you want to build on and really and shine and share that with your prospective candidates. It's so, so important to have some kind of presence as an employer. I'm sure you have been in this time where you're trying to do research on an employer, you're trying to do research on this product, and you don't see anything. The little like light or flag comes up, right? You're like, okay, is this a legitimate company or a legitimate product? So it's really important to have that presence, absolutely. And there's really many, many ways that you can get that started. Create your social presence, create a website, and get some pictures, testimonials, stories, values. You got it.
Mm. Sounds great. Sounds great. It sounds like people should be coming to you when they're ready to make the shift, especially the small business owner, the solopreneur, when they're ready
I'm
to
happy to
make
help.
that
Yeah.
transition from, yeah, doing it themselves to, okay, let me bring on some people to help me grow. Sounds like you have what it takes to make sure they get it to that next stage. Um,
Thanks, Adrian.
sure. So once you have that right person, right? What
Mhm.
should a company do next, right? Like, how can leaders make sure that these employees are not just onboarded, but now we're talking about employee development, but they're actually developed. cultivated,
Mhm.
a career path, that kind of thing. What makes employee development after hiring a success?
Yeah, sure. So before we get into employee development, we talked about onboarding. That's another piece you have to be very strategic about is the
Mm,
onboarding of a new hire, making sure that that has already been set in stone, that you have a mix of the paperwork, the documentation, what have you, but you also bring in the introductions to your team, making them feel welcomed and what have you. But employee development can be reflective in many different ways. Um, Check often and check early, and creating a roadmap, a journey for your talent. It's really key for executives to be working with their leadership team, to be working with HR, to create a roadmap, to create a development journey, um, internally, but also making that available for employees to understand. What does that journey look like? What do I have to do to hit those key milestones so I can get to the next level? And development can look different for each person. I had many people on my team when I was leading a global recruiting team. I had many people recruiters that were not interested in moving into a leadership role. They just wanted to be individual contributors, but they wanted to develop on their skills, on the types of roles that they worked on. Perhaps they wanted to move into executive search. So development looks different for each person. So that is also important as an employer to consider. Development doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to move into a manager and move into a traditional path. It can mean internal mobility. It can be skill-based development. It can be even soft skills development. It can be learning a different piece of the business. It can provide different, facets of understanding the business. I think something that we did really cool with a previous employer of mine was doing a rotational program where people that were employees or interns, we would actually have them every 4 weeks kind of switch into different cross organizations. So
mm.
you, Adrian, as an IT professional, you would have to come into my hood. You would have to come into recruiting and learn about the recruiting organization and vice
No, thank
versa.
you. No,
But it
thank
was
you.
really neat because it gave folks the opportunity to tap into something that maybe traditionally they wouldn't have as a career journey or skill-based journey. And they did that. So there's a lot of ways. I know it's a long-winded way of saying there's many ways to develop your team. It doesn't always have to look so traditional, but listen to your team, listen to your employees of how they would like to develop. Quarterly business reviews, quarterly reviews, employee reviews are a great way to check in, but also on your one-on-ones, understanding what the future looks like for your employees and what they want to do.
That sounds great, Ty. For you personally, in your own professional and career growth, what were the ones that stood out the most for you? What were the things that you remember the best personally that you said, you know what, I really enjoyed working here because the development experience, the growth experience, was very positive for me. Do you have any that you would like to share with us?
Sure. Um, at one of my employers, I was actually a key piece of creating the program for that. And what I thought was really cool was that I got the opportunity to do that. I was more typically working on the client side, and then an opportunity arose that I was able to work with the internal company, not on the client side, but on the internal company to actually create things like journey roadmaps, internal trainings, and so forth. So I thought that was really cool that this company did such a great job of creating opportunities internally where I would have authentic conversations with my leader, and many of my employees did as well, where they're like, "Hey, I might be interested in moving into this piece of the organization, or um, might be interested in like volunteering to do this kind of project." So I think they were really good at that. creating opportunities based on what they people were saying, not always a traditional route, but creating opportunities that employees would voice, like, hey, maybe I want to get more technical training, or hey, I want to get more training here. So I think for me it was being able to be exposed to opportunities within the organization that perhaps weren't traditional like other employers.
Thank you for that. From what I'm hearing you say, the experience for you, for example, was being one aware that in this organization you're able to chart your own course, or at the very least have
Hmm.
conversation about charting your own course. The other thing I heard in that was you said basically you worked with them to create that roadmap or that journey, right? So
Yeah.
you not only had the opportunity to have a conversation, but you played a role in actually developing that. So
Yes.
so you would say solicit
And
feedback.
absolutely, often and
Mhm.
always, like,
Okay.
the the best thing as an employer is to really, one of the best things is to hear your team. Your team is
Mhm.
the one day in and day out
Mhm.
that has the loyalty, the work, the meat and bones of your organization. So absolutely,
Mhm.
having that open ear and a platform to do it. Not every employee is going to come straight to you and tell you
Mm. Oh yeah.
the ugly, right?
Oh, you're right. Oh,
So
absolutely.
so
I've got no ugly
making
in
a
my
means to
company.
do
I'm just
that.
kidding. I've got no ugly in my company. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah,
But
as
like,
you
don't expect people to always come to
uh
you.
yeah.
Angel's laughing, by the way. I'm
She's
gonna come
laughing
to
because she's in
Angel.
agreement with me. She's agreeing with me. There's no ugly in Cloud 77 or Harper Consultants.
Oh
Right,
my
Angel?
gosh. But
But
no, in all
yeah,
honesty, like, creating ways to do that. Creating
yeah,
ways to do that. It's not always like, well, they never said anything to me, but
yeah,
like maybe there's an anonymous box, maybe there's like
yeah.
a way that every employee has comfort in coming to lend that feedback.
You know what? I'm gonna piggybacking on that. In your experience as far as like what makes employees stay and what are some practical things you can do. Well, what about the employees now, right? I think I have some of my employees listening on this conversation here, right? So what can they be thinking about, right? It's not just on the employer, right, to do everything. What can employees do? One, to stand up for themselves, to communicate what it is that they're looking for, to chart their own destiny, so to speak, right? Like I just to kind of extend that question a little bit, right? For example, there's entrepreneurship, right? Yourself, myself. The entrepreneurial journey is not necessarily for everyone, right?
Mhm.
Um, but there's still entrepreneurship, right?
Mhm.
Working within an organization and charting, as you said, your own course, your own destiny. Um, what can employees and staff do from their perspective to be able to create opportunities for themselves or make sure that they are making themselves at home as well?
Mhm. Really early on in my career, someone had shared with me that if you want opportunities to grow with an organization,
Mhm.
raise your hand and take
Mm.
on whatever you can, right?
Mm.
With comfort, of course. Like, and sometimes it's okay to be uncomfortable because that's how you
Right.
learn. But
Right.
um, raise your hand. Hey, can I help with this project? Hey, have you ever thought about doing it this way? I was
Yeah.
just thinking about this, and perhaps we can take it this way. And some, not all personalities would be comfortable with that, and that's fine.
Yes.
Um, but if you feel comfortable enough to voice ideas, voice potential opportunities for yourself,
Mhm.
um, do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't always lean on your leadership to know what you're thinking, and that's for anyone. If
Yeah.
you have ideas, present them, even if you're
Mhm.
not sure about it. Come with
Yeah.
it with grace, and
Yes.
just come with the ideas, um, and communicate the ROI,
Yeah.
communicate the value in it.
Mhm.
Don't just be like, hey, Adrian, I want you to pay for me to get my certification. Okay, like, hold up. Like, tell me why. Why does that make
Thank you,
sense for
Tallin.
me as an
Keep going,
employer?
Tallin. Keep going, please. I love it.
um, but like, but you as an IT professional, you probably have engineers or technicians in the field that are interested in certain certifications, CompTIA, security certifications. And perhaps if they came to you with an ROI of how this is going to bring value to you as an organization, you might consider that as a
Absolutely.
pathway of development for them. So voice
Absolutely.
your ideas, raise your hand to volunteer, get exposure, learn, find a mentor in your organization. That's another one that's so good. Having a
Mm-hmm.
mentorship and mentee partnership is a
Mm-hmm.
great way to grow in an organization as well. So you'll have like a trusted partner to kind of show you the ropes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Tom. I hope everyone's taking notes over there. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. Question number number 8. All right, let's go. How can companies prepare for future hiring needs instead of only reacting when they're short staffed or overwhelmed? I know you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in the conversation, but how can companies be proactive and what are strategies that they should use in that process?
Sure. You're tapping into all of my goodies, all of my toolboxes,
Your trade
all of my
secrets.
tools. Um, I think this goes without saying from our conversation thus far is not to be so reactive in your
Mhm,
hiring.
mhm,
Deciding about what you're going to hire for at that moment, at that need, is already too late. You should be thinking about the type of talent that you're hiring for ongoing. So, building that talent pipeline. Adrian, you know who you hire for. Employers,
mhm,
you know who you hire for. You're going to have those surprises here and there, but there are certain skills that typically will come up in your organization or that you're building towards, right? So,
mhm.
building a talent pipeline, nurturing a talent pipeline, a talent community is a great way to do that. So, maybe you don't have a job opening at this moment, but you, Adrian, know that you would love to build a community of techs. You want all those techs coming to you. There is this idea of a talent community where you can create a place where people will fill out a simple form. They can attach a resume if they like, but
Mhm.
essentially you're building this community of people that are interested in your brand or interested in these types of roles. And when you're ready to make that hire, guess what? You get to tap into that pool and you get to say, hey, 6 months ago when I didn't have this opening, I built this talent community of techs. So I need to tap into that network. So long-winded way again of just saying be very strategic about building that pipeline ahead of time. So when that person decides to make a move, decides, or you're growing your organization, you have a pipeline to that you can tap into that's already been nurtured.
Mm. Juicy stuff here, Tan. Juicy stuff. Thank you so much. All right. So, okay, talking about like the human touch in the recruiting process, right? Let's
Hmm.
talk about your work at Hello Talent, right? You emphasize a more human and authentic approach to hiring. And so, what does human-centered recruiting mean to you?
Hmm. Leading with the empathy, leading with um, making things less transactional. The recruiting business can be very transactional. You get a resume, you ask them a few questions, you move them into interview, you get them hired. Check. Like, right? It can be very like transactional. Ah, there's so much in between there that makes it
Mhm,
human though. There's
mhm,
so
mhm,
much of learning the intention, the goals of that candidate, the motivating factors, understanding what growth goals they have for themselves. So there's a lot
mhm,
of work that happens on the candidate side. Then there's a
mhm,
discovery with employers that they you talk to them about their business, how they started, where they're going, who works in the organization, like all of those human aspects, right? And then
mhm,
what do you want your talent to look like? What types of things meet those business goals? um and then throughout the process, checking in with candidates, checking in with the employers, like this is a process that takes like maybe 30 to 60 to 90 days, depending on the roles. So there's a lot of human touch in between that can differentiate one recruiting organization, talent acquisition organization from another. You guys have all been heard of that ghosting term. Ghosting can happen throughout for all parties. So
Mm,
I think just really being honest in those conversations, checking in frequently, being transparent, those are and moving with empathy, you know, ultimately employers want to make a hire, but treating candidates with respect. Candidates ultimately want to hear feedback, but treating employers with respect of like giving them time. It's just just moving with empathy and human touch throughout, I think, is what makes the difference, honestly. Sadly, things have shifted in the talent acquisition world, and employers are getting inundated with applications. And sadly, you're hearing more and more candidates being ghosted or not hearing feedback or not, I haven't heard anything from the employer, or I applied 6 months ago and I just heard back, just keeping those things in mind. We're all human in the end. um, Try to check in with all of the parties as much as you can and really moving with respect and empathy throughout.
mm. It's really, really great. So I guess from what you're saying, I'm hearing reciprocation,
Mm, that's a good word.
communication,
Yeah.
yeah, curiosity, maybe like discovery, I think is a word that you use as well too. So it's that empathy as you use those things that kind of um, take the time to get in the world of the other person on the other side, maybe for the employer, for
Yep.
example,
I
helping
think
them.
authenticity, yeah, sorry.
No, go
Yes.
for it, please. Yeah,
I was just thinking, I think on both sides too, like really moving with honesty is so
yeah.
important because let's take it from the candidate's perspective. This candidate is making a move in their career journey. They've decided that they're going to look for a new job. That's their
Mhm,
livelihood. That's their
mhm,
livelihood. That's their day to day. A lot comes with that.
mhm,
Um, so it's really important for the candidate to be true, real, giving their honesty to the employer. But on the employer side, be real with what they're getting into as well. I
right,
work with a
right.
client that's really good at that, and I appreciate him so much because of that.
Yeah.
Like, you really want to create the real picture for the candidate as well. So that rest, I'm not going to be able to say the word now, but that reciprocation
Reciprocity?
goes on.
No.
Yeah, I can't say it, but it
Okay.
goes on both sides. Like making sure that it's authentic both ways is a way to
Mhm.
bring that human touch as well and being true to the process.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. And then before we go to the audience's questions, I'm going to ask you this one as well too. So
Hmm.
for business owners, leaders, and managers who are joining us today, for them, what are three things they can start doing today, this week, right? What is today? Wednesday, right? To improve their recruiting and employee development process.
Get in touch with me.
I love that one. I'm
No, but
writing that down. Everyone, pen and paper, write that one down. Get in touch with Hello
um,
Talent. Hmm.
three things that can help them improve recruiting. Well, I think I've shared a lot of nuggets today. I think ultimately just sitting with what we've talked about and thinking about your current process will really help you, like auditing what you're doing today. And
Hmm.
I'm a results girl. I'm a data girl. So having some way of quantifying the success of the current process. So
Hmm.
maybe it's in the top of the funnel where you're not getting applications.
Hmm.
Maybe it's your employer brand. Maybe it's your internal interview processes. So maybe sit down and think about what we've talked about today and do a quick audit about what you're doing today. So that would be my first piece of advice. Lean on experts to help you along the way. I think, you know, uh, we
Hmm.
can all take that advice. Adrian, you and I talked about this, where
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, oftentimes we try to be resourceful and scrappy, and we try to do everything. This is something I can also learn for myself, and Adrian knows that. But lean on the experts to help you. Like we are here for a reason, and we can help consult and partner. And don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. Um, and then I feel like I did too. So three, be
Mhm.
make things less transactional and think about that human touch more than ever. That is such a huge important thing in our world today, is to like bring back that human connection.
I get it. I get it. I have a bonus question for you, Time, just before we move to the audience.
Just keep going, Adrian,
I,
keep going.
hey, when you got the goose that's laying the golden eggs, right? You gotta get as many golden eggs as possible, right? Um, so just tell us a little bit about your process, at Hello Talent. What is it? What is the typical day, week cycle for you with a customer in terms of your process? How does a customer from start to finish, they get a hold of Hello Talent, they get a hold of Talent. What does that look like for you as a
Hmm.
project?
Hmm. I would first say sometimes as a small business owner, you don't even know where to start. So I would say at Hello Talent, what I can help you with is just have that discovery call with you, which is where I always start. Is, hey, getting to know about your needs, getting to know about your challenges, getting to know about where you want to take your business. So that discovery and that deep dive will help me really
Mhm.
kind of create that roadmap for the both of us for our partnership. Services can look different and can be completely flexible on what your needs are. So if you need to hire for one person, you need to hire for 10 people, you need fractional support, like the list can go on. Executive search, it can all be flexed to your needs. So discovery would be number one, where we would work together in a very consultative way. Just be really honest about what that scope looks like. If you don't know, that's totally fine. I can help guide you. Once we have that idea, then let's say we're talking about a recruiting engagement. We'll talk about the needs, talk about that. I'll create that kind of process of screening, vetting the talent, and shortlisting those candidates, and then sending them over to you, helping you create that interview process. And then we would work on feedback to get you that hire. If it's on the company employer brand side, it'll be a lot of auditing and talking through the current process, and really a consultative partnership from that side. So depending on the services, but ultimately it'll come back to first dive on the discovery together. And throughout the process, it'll be extremely consultative, very collaborative, and very high touch.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Well, Talon, I'm, I've been so excited, looking forward to this interview, and you did not disappoint at all.
Oh, I
So many
appreciate that.
nuggets here, and so we have a couple of questions that came in from our audience here. Vahan had a question. His question was, "What are the most effective ways to assess skills during interviews?"
Mhm. Hi, Vahan. Nice to see you here. So it depends on the types of skills, right? There's different ways to vet it. Um, Ultimately, you can do it in some kind of assessment, right? A skills-based assessment, if that's what we need to do. Um, Leaning on the hiring team to understand the specific skills that we need to assess for and we need to qualify and vet for. And one of the things that I love doing is understanding their day to day to understand what skills we need to vet for. And that can look different. Again, it can be assessments, it can be um, phone or video screenings, discussing really day to days of what people bring to the table. Uh, yes or no questions are not the way to go. Really keeping conversations open with candidates to understand their skill sets is
Mhm.
key. And that again, it can be in different channels, but I would say making it open-ended, understanding their day-to-days, really their hands-on experience, their individual contributions to projects is going to be key to really understand. And then from a practical execution point of view, sometimes during interviews, if they need to do a coding, if they need to do any kind of um, hands-on kind of preview of what their skill sets look like. Of course, it depends on the type of roles, but of course those are feasible as well.
Mm, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tan. Our second question comes from Javon Moss, all the way in the Bahamas. My friend Javon, uh,
Hi, Javon.
yeah, so great. So good afternoon. It's ever so polite. Um, there is a movement of the importance of psychological safety, right? We hear about that personal health, mental safety. Many spaces are silent because people don't feel safe about speaking frankly on matters of importance. How do you suggest improving this space?
hmm Thank you, Javon, for the question. And we touched a little on this, and I think I'm answering your question. So feel free to pop into the chat if I'm not. But um, yes, there can be kind of hesitation to kind of speak up about maybe it's mental health, maybe it's really just protecting yourself, your individual self, in a workplace because you're afraid to speak up about personal matters or mental health, or perhaps you're stressed and it's a stressful work environment, volatile, what have you. um, I would hope that you have certain channels to speak through those concerns in your environment, whether it's HR or your leadership or a mentor or a friend at the employees. um, Perhaps there are anonymous channels, right? Some organizations will have these kind of anonymous emails or bins or what have you to have these types of information. HR is there to help you, really. If you don't feel safe in that space, perhaps there is an employee resource group, um, that you have smaller communities or smaller groups to share some concerns or ways to talk about your mental health, right? Um, Employee resource groups are a great way to kind of bring that together because again, it's not going up to your leadership or what have you. You have a trusted group maybe within that organization, to perhaps speak through some of those concerns or see how people get through some of the concerns that they have. And there's also, I know something that my organization that did that was really helpful was provide outside services for people because it was stressful working in certain fast-paced environments. So they would have certain resources that they could reach out to externally. Maybe it was therapy, maybe it was, hey, get out and do some physical activity, whatever those was. But they provided some outside services to help them with that as well.
Mm. Well, thank
I
you,
hope that
Talon.
answered the question.
No, absolutely. Resources within the
hmm
organization necessary, maybe resources outside the organization. Mr. Moss, thanks so much. We're really grateful that you could be on. Vahan had a very quick question. We're about to wrap up. But Vahan's question was, how can smaller companies compete with big brands? So 30 seconds, Talon, and then we'll just close it out.
Um, don't try to compete. That would be my answer. Don't try to compete.
Mm,
There's no reason to compete. Be Understand your value proposition, understand what you bring to the table as a small business. Because guess what? Small businesses are small, but they're mighty. And oftentimes they can move with agility and big companies can't. So you can make quicker changes. You can make bigger impacts sometimes as a small company. So don't compete.
mm. Thank you, Todd, so much. Thanks so much for sharing your time, your insights, your experience with us. This has been so great. I'm sure I know I've taken a whole bunch of notes. Hopefully, our audience has taken some notes. If not, it's okay. We're going to cut up some clips. We're going to put it on YouTube. And so we'll be sharing some of the content on LinkedIn as well, too. But Todd, is there anything in closing that you want to share, anything that you would want your audience to take away from this message? Anything in particular that stands out the most for you?
Mhm. Um, just I think we've talked a lot, Adrian. I think everything, I would say reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to be a lending ear for you. Um, everything starts with a conversation, even if you're not sure where you need to move with recruiting or how to build your talent or improve your culture. Let's start a conversation. Otherwise, um, move with intent, move with purpose. I think those are some really key things. Move with empathy. Um, I would like to just leave my email here. So happy to start a conversation. I just put my email in the chat as well. And thank you so much for putting my LinkedIn up there, Hello Talent, and my personal LinkedIn. Feel free to connect either way. Um,
Okay. And that is
and
Tallin,
thank you so
T-A-L,
much.
yep, Tallin at hellotalentagency.com. She is on LinkedIn. You can see her name there, Tallin Semerjian. And again, talent at hellotalentagency.com. Well, Tan, thank you so much. We've learned so much. We're so grateful, myself especially. I'm sure all of the audience is. This was one of our best interviews, and I think a really powerful message that's very helpful in terms of recruiting, the recruiting process. Yeah, so uh, we are so grateful.
Oh my
This
gosh,
was,
I'm so grateful, by the way.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
We
you,
really,
Adrian.
yeah.
You
So.
move with so much heart and passion in everything you do. So it was really a gift for me to be here today. So I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you so much.
Well, the pleasure was all ours. And just a quick shameless plug-in on our side here on Cloud 77 and Harper Consultants. If you want some help in terms of your technology support, your IT services, uh, even some support on the business side with the strategy and execution, you can reach out to Cloud 77 or Harper Consultants. And uh, we'll give you a complimentary call and free consultation. And again, reach out to Talin at Hello Talent. So glad to have you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Adrian. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
A great one. Thank you. Bye.